let yourself grow still now. There is nothing more the day asks of you. Whatever you carry through these last hours, you can set it down at the edge of the water and leave it there, and it will keep until morning without your watching. You do not need to hold anything tonight. You can let your hands fall open. You can let your shoulders sink. You can let your breath grow long and slow and quiet, the way a calm lake breathes beneath a low gray sky, rising and falling so gently that you would hardly know it moved at all. Listen, the story I am going to tell you is very old and very soft, and it comes from the green island of Ireland, from a time when the country was full of magic and the lakes were full of light. It is a tender story, and a little sad in its middle, the way the most beautiful old songs are a little sad, but it ends in peace, and it asks nothing of you but that you rest. You do not need to remember it. You do not need to follow every word. The words are only a quiet road for you to walk down until sleep finds you, and you may let sleep find you whenever it comes. If your mind drifts, let it drift. If your thoughts wander off across the dark water, let them go. That is exactly what is meant to happen here. Tonight we go back to the old days of Ireland, to the time of a gentle and shining people who lived upon the land long before the cities and the roads we know. They were called the people of the goddess Danu, and they were tall and fair and full of music, and they loved the green hills and the bright rivers and the wide, quiet lakes more than anything in the world. Among them lived a great lord, a king of the sea, and his name was Lir. Picture him for a moment, not as anything frightening, only as a kind old lord in a long blue cloak, standing on a low hill at evening, looking out across the water he loved. The wind moves softly in his gray hair. The light is silver and rose along the edge of the lake, and he is at peace because he has all that a heart could want, and he does not yet know that the years will ask him to give it up. That is where we begin tonight, with a happy home by the water. In the old green days of Ireland, let the picture settle over you, soft as mist coming down over the reeds. There is no hurry in this story. It moves at the speed of water, and so may you, sinking slowly, breathing slowly, letting the old island gather you in. Breathe in, slow and easy, the cool, clean air that smells of rain and green and far-off heather. And let it go again, just as slow, feeling your body grow a little softer, a little heavier, a little closer to the bed beneath you. You have nowhere to be. There is nothing you must finish. The whole of this long, quiet story will go on whether you follow it or not, and it would be glad, more than anything, for you simply to fall asleep somewhere along the way. So let the worries of the day loosen their hold, one by one, the way the evening light loosens its hold on the hills, fading so gently that you never see it go. And come with me now, back across the years, to a hill above a lake in old green Ireland, where a kind old lord stands looking at the water and is happy, and does not yet know what the years will bring. Lir lived in a fair white house upon a green hill, with the lake spread wide and shining below it, and for many years he was content. But the truest joy of his life was not the house, nor the land, nor even the lake he loved. It was his children, 4 of them, and there were never 4 children more dearly loved in all the green island. The eldest was a daughter, and her name was Fiannuala. She was gentle and clear-eyed and wise beyond her years, and she had a voice for singing that was sweeter than any in the land. When Fiannuala sang in the evening by the water, the birds would grow quiet to listen, and the wind would seem to soften, and even the Lord her father would close his eyes and feel the day's cares lift away from him like mist off the morning water. She was the one the others looked to, the one who held them all together, the steady elder sister with love enough for all. Next came a son, and his name was Aoife, and he was bright and brave and full of laughter. Where Fionnuala was calm, Aoife was light and quick, running ahead along the shore, his arms full of reeds and feathers and bright stones he had found. Always the first to laugh and the first to comfort. And then came two more, the youngest of all, two little twin boys named Fiacre and Con, so alike best strangers could not tell them apart, who went everywhere together, hand in hand, and slept curled close like two small birds in one nest. You can imagine the days they had. Long green days that seemed to have no end. In the mornings, they would run down to the lake while the dew was still on the grass, and they would wade in the cool shallows and watch the fish flicker between the stones. They would lie back in the long grass and watch the great clouds sail over, and Fionnuala would tell them the names of things, and Aoife would make them laugh, and the two little ones would fall asleep in the warm afternoon with their heads on their sister's lap. And in the evenings, they would gather close by the fire, all four of them, and Fionnuala would sing them down into sleep, her voice low and sweet, while their father sat near and watched them with a love so deep it ached. Their mother had been a kind and beautiful woman, and the children had loved her, but she had grown ill and slipped away from them while the twins were still very small, and so there was a quiet sadness folded under all their happiness, the way there often is. Lir grieved for her a long time, but he had his 4 children, and they had each other, and the love between the 5 of them was a warm and living thing that filled the White House on the hill and kept the cold from getting in. They were enough for one another. They were happy, and for a good long while, that happiness held. Let yourself rest in that warmth a moment before the story turns. 4 children asleep by a fire, safe and loved and warm. A father watching over them in the soft light. The lake calm and silver beyond the window, holding the last of the evening sky. Hold that picture gently. It is the home this whole long story is reaching toward, all the way through the centuries that are coming, and it is good to begin there, in the warmth, so that you know what the swans will be remembering, all those long years upon the cold, bright water. And as you hold it, let it become your own warmth too, just for tonight. Let the fire in that old white house be the warmth of your own bed. Let the soft singing of Fionnuala be the quiet of your own room. Let the lake lying calm and silver beyond the window be the calm that is settling now over your own slow breath. You are as safe as those 4 children by the fire. You are as warmly held. There is nothing in the night that can reach you here. So let your eyes grow heavy, the way theirs grew heavy in the firelight, and let your thoughts begin to drift, the way a small boat drifts loose from its mooring and turns slowly out onto the still dark water of sleep. Now in those days, it was the custom for great lords to be joined together by marriage, and Lir, though he still grieved for the children's mother, came at last to take a new wife. Her name was Aoife. She was the sister of the woman Lir had loved and lost, and she was beautiful and clever. And when she came to the White House on the hill, she seemed at first to be a gift sent to mend a grieving family, and for a while, it truly was so. Aoife came among the 4 children, and she was gentle with them. She was their mother's own sister after all, and she had known them since they were small, and she loved them then, in those early days, the way an aunt loves the children of a sister she has lost. She brushed Fianuala's long hair by the fire. She laughed at Aod's quick jokes. She gathered the two little twins onto her lap and told them the old stories until their eyes grew heavy. Lir watched and was glad, and thought that the cold place left by grief was warming again at last. The house was full once more. It seemed that all would be well. But there is a slow and quiet poison that can grow in a heart, and its name is jealousy, and it grew in Aoife without her quite knowing it had begun. For she saw how Lir loved the 4 children. She saw that when he came home, it was their names he called first. She saw that his eyes went to them across the hall, that his last thought at night and his first thought in the morning was for them, that there was a place in his heart that was theirs alone and would never be hers. And though he was kind to her and honored her and called her his wife, she began to feel, sitting at his side, that she was second to 4 children, that the great love of the house was not hers and never would be. She might have spoken of it. She might have let the feeling pass, the way a cloud passes over the lake and leaves the water bright again. But she did not. She held the jealousy close and fed it in the dark of her own thoughts, until it grew from a small cold thing into something that filled her whole heart and crowded out the love that had been there at the start. And the more she nursed it, the more she came to believe, a terrible and twisted thing, that if only the children were gone, then all of Lir's love would come at last to her. I tell you this softly, because it is the turn toward the dark part of the night, and the dark part is only here so that the long piece of the ending can feel as deep as it does. You need not be troubled by it. Aoife's jealousy cannot reach you where you lie, warm and safe in the dark. It is only an old sorrow in an old story, far away across the water and across the long years. But it is real, the way such things are real, and it grew in her all through one long autumn, while the children played by the lake and never guessed, until at last a cold purpose hardened in her, and one bright morning she called the 4 of them to her, and told them they would go on a journey to the lake. It was a fair morning when they set out, the kind of morning that gives no warning. The grass was wet with dew, and the larks were rising, and the 4 children were glad to be going on a journey, for they did not know what was in their stepmother's heart. They came at last to the shore of a wide and lovely lake, a lake called Derravaragh, with low green hills around it and the water lying still and bright under the morning sky. And Aoife told them they might bathe in the cool, clear water while she rested on the shore. So the children ran down to the lake laughing and waded out into the shallows, the way they had 100 times before. Fianuala and Aoide, and the 2 little twins, Fiacra and Khan, out in the bright water with the sky above them and the green hills around, never dreaming that anything could be wrong. And Aoife stood upon the shore and watched them. And the cold thing in her heart rose up, and she lifted her hand, and she spoke the words of an old and terrible magic over the 4 children of Lir. And as she spoke, a strange change came over them. Where 4 children had stood laughing in the water, there rose up now 4 white swans, 4 beautiful white birds upon the bright lake, their long necks pale against the silver water, their eyes still soft and frightened and entirely their own. For Aoife's spell had taken their human shape from them and given them the bodies of swans, but it had left them, in her one mercy, or her one cruelty, their human minds and their human hearts and their own dear voices. You can imagine the silence on that shore. The 4 white swans turning on the water, looking down at their own white wings, looking at one another, beginning to understand. And then Fionnuala, the eldest, finding that she could still speak, that her voice was still her own, lifted her swan's head and asked her stepmother, in a voice full of sorrow and not yet of anger, how long this spell would last, and whether there was any hope of release in it at all. And here, even Aoife seemed to falter, for the deed was done now, and she could not undo it. And perhaps some last small ember of the love she had once felt stirred in her. She told them their fate. For 300 years, she said, they would live upon this lake, Lake Derravaragh, where they were born to swans, and then for 300 years more upon a cold and narrow strait of the sea between 2 lands, where the waters were rough and gray, and then for 300 years more upon a wild and lonely sea by the western shore, where the winds never rested, 900 years in all, upon the waters of Ireland, in the shape of swans. But she could not take everything from them. She left them their reason and their love for one another, and she left them their voices, and more she gave them, almost without meaning to. A gift folded inside the curse, that their singing should be the sweetest and most beautiful music ever heard in all the land. Music that would bring peace to every troubled heart that listened, and lull the weary and the grieving into healing sleep. And she told them, last of all, that the spell would not be broken until a holy bell should ring out across Ireland for a new age. A gentle bell they had never heard, sounding from a far-off time. Until that bell, they would be swans. Only then would they be free. Let that settle over you slowly. The strange cruelty and the strange mercy folded together. 4 children turned to swans upon a quiet lake, and so much taken from them, and yet not their love, and not their voices, and not the hope of a bell ringing somewhere far ahead in the dark of the years. Even in the deepest of the spell, something was left them. Some light was left burning. Hold on to that. As the long centuries began, the children of Lir were never wholly in the dark. Now, when Aoife came home alone, without the 4 children, Lir's heart misgave him at once, for never in their lives had they been parted from him so. He asked her where they were, and she gave him uneasy answers, but the truth would not stay hidden, and at last it came out, the whole terrible thing. What she had done by the shore of Lake Derravaragh, and the grief of Lir was a grief too deep for any words I have. He went out from his house at once, in the night, riding hard for the lake, calling the names of his children into the dark. And when he came to the shore of Derravaragh, pale and trembling in the gray light before the dawn, he saw upon the still water 4 white swans drawing near to him through the mist, and he did not yet understand until the swans came close to the shore, and the foremost of them, the largest and most graceful, opened her mouth and spoke to him in the dear and unmistakable voice of his daughter Fionnuala. Oh, the meeting on that shore! I will not dwell too long upon the sorrow of it, for this is a story meant to carry you gently down into rest, not to keep you awake with weeping. But know that Lir wept, and that his 4 swan children gathered close about him in the shallow water, and that he held their long white necks and pressed his face to their soft feathers, and that they told him, each in their own voice, all that had happened, and how they were to spend 900 years upon the waters before a far bell set them free. And then, because there was nothing else to be done, and because they could not come home with him, and he could not stay forever upon the shore, the four swans did the only gift they had left to give. They drew together upon the dark water, and they began to sing. It was the first time their swan song was ever heard, and it was the most beautiful sound that had ever risen over the lakes of Ireland. It was a music of such sweetness and such peace that it seemed to gather up all the sorrow on that shore and turn it, slowly, into something almost like comfort. The grief was still there, woven all through it, but the music held the grief the way a calm lake holds the cold rain, taking it in, smoothing it out, making of it something still and deep and bearable. Lir, who had come to the lake half mad with sorrow, grew quiet as he listened. The trembling left his hands. The wild grief in him softened into a grief he could carry, and then into a strange and gentle peace. And at last, there on the cold shore in the growing light, with his swan children singing over the water, the old Lord slept. And so it would be, all down the long years, whenever any troubled soul came to the lake and heard the children of Lir singing, their cares would ease and their grief would soften, and a healing sleep would come over them. The gift folded inside the curse began its long work. The four white swans could not be children again, not yet, not for ages and ages. But they could give peace. They could sing the weary into rest. And that, all through the centuries to come, is what they did. There is something very tender in that, when you let yourself feel it, that out of so great a sorrow, so much comfort flowed, that the four children, robbed of their own home and their own shape, spent 900 years giving rest to everyone who came to them, weary and grieving and could not sleep. They could not heal their own long ache, not until the bell, but they could heal yours, and they could heal mine, and they could heal the ache of every tired soul who ever drifted to the water's edge and listened. Their sorrow became a gift. Their long, sad music became the gentlest medicine in all the green island. And tonight, across all those years, the gift is still flowing, still reaching out across the dark water toward you, who came to the edge of this story, tired and in need of rest. The swans are singing for you now. Let them sing you down. Let their first song reach you now, across all those years. You do not need to hear the tune. You only need to let the feeling of it come over you. The feeling of sorrow gently held, of cares smoothed out upon dark water, of a music made for the very purpose of carrying tired and grieving souls down into healing sleep. That song was made for you too tonight. Let it soften whatever you carried in. Let it ease you the way it eased the old Lord on the shore. And let yourself begin, like him, to sink toward sleep. So began the first long age of the swans, the 300 years upon Lake Derravaragh. And though it was an enchantment, and though they longed to be children again, those first 300 years were the gentlest of all the years that were given them. And it is good to rest here a while in the quiet of that lake, for the lake was beautiful, and the swans were together, and they were not far from the people who loved them. Lir came often to the shore to be with his children, and so did many others. For word spread through all the green island of the four white swans of Derravaragh and the wondrous music they made. The people of Danu, the shining folk, would come down to the lake at evening and sit upon the grassy banks and listen, and the swans would sing to them across the water, and there was peace upon that shore, such as there was nowhere else in all the land. It is said that those 300 years were a time of great gentleness in Ireland, because the music of the Children of Lir lay over the country like a blessing, and the four of them had each other always. Through every season they stayed close, four white shapes upon the changing water. In the spring, the new reeds rose green around them, and the lake filled with light, and they swam among the lilies and watched the small ducklings follow their mothers through the shallows. In the long gold evenings of summer, they drifted out upon the still water and sang as the sun went down. And the sky behind the hills turned rose and amber, and at last to deep blue, strewn with the first soft stars. In autumn, the hills around the lake turned bronze and russet, and the morning mists lay thick and silver on the water, and the swans floated within the mists like dreams, calling softly to one another so as not to lose one another in the white. And in winter, when the cold came down and the edges of the lake grew still and gray, the four of them huddled close together against the night. Fionnuala, spreading her great white wings over her three younger brothers to keep them warm, the way an elder sister will, sheltering the two little twins beneath her feathers and drawing Aoife close to her side. That was Fionnuala's way all through the long years. She had been the one who held them together when they were children by the fire, and she was the one who held them together now, upon the cold water, when the nights were hard. She gathered them under her wings. When their hearts grew heavy with the long years, she sang to them and reminded them of the bell that would one day ring, and of the home they would come back to in the end. She kept their courage alive. She kept their love alive. And so, even in the shape of swans, even upon the lonely water, they remained what they had always been, a family, close and warm and unbroken, four hearts that held to one another through everything. 300 years is a great long time, longer than you can truly imagine, but let it wash over you the way the seasons washed over the lake, slow and turning and gentle, spring and summer and autumn and winter, again and again and again, 300 times around, while the four white swans drifted on the bright water and sang their healing psalms to the people on the shore. There was sorrow in it, the long ache of waiting, the longing to be children again in their father's house. But there was beauty in it too, and there was love, and there was peace upon the Lake of Derravaragh that lasted the whole long age. And the days upon that lake were so much alike, so soft and so unhurried, that the years slipped by almost without weight. The sun came up over the eastern hills and laid its long gold path across the water, and the swans woke and stretched their great white wings and began the slow business of another gentle day. The light moved across the lake from morning to noon to evening, and the small winds came and went in the reeds, and the clouds sailed over and were mirrored in the still water below, so that there seemed to be two skies, one above and one beneath, with the four swans drifting between them. And when the evening came again, and the gold light deepened to rose, and the rose to violet, and the violet at last to the soft blue dark, the swans drew together and sang the day to its rest, and the people on the banks grew quiet and peaceful. And one by one, the stars came out and were reflected in the lake like a second scattering of silver upon the dark water. Day after day, season after season, year upon gentle year, the same slow turning, the same deep peace. Rest there with them now. Float upon the still water under the turning sky, Let 300 slow and gentle years carry you toward sleep, but all the ages of the world come at last to their turning. And when the 300 years upon Derravaragh were ended, the swans felt the spell stir within them, and they knew that it was time to leave the lake they had come to love, and to go on to the second of their 3 long waters. And this was the hardest of the partings, for the second water was a cold and bitter one, a narrow gray sea between Ireland and the land beyond it, a place called the Sea of Moyle, where the waves were rough and the winds were wild, and there was no quiet shore where their father and the gentlefolk could come to sit and listen. So the 4 swans rose up from Lake Derravaragh, and they flew north and east to the cold strait. And they came down upon the gray heaving sea, and there began the second of their long ages. 300 years upon the Sea of Moyle. I will tell you of these years gently, for they were the loneliest the children of Lir would ever know. And yet, even here, in the hardest of their waters, the thread of comfort was never quite let go. For the Sea of Moyle was a lonely place. There were no soft green banks here, no listeners gathered at evening, no father coming down to the shore. There was only the wide, cold sea, and the wind, and the high, lonely cliffs in the distance. And on the worst nights, great storms would come down upon the water, and the waves would rise like dark hills, and the 4 swans would be tossed and scattered upon the heaving sea, struggling to keep sight of one another in the dark and the spray. And those were fearful nights, and the children of Lir, who had once slept warm by a fire in their father's house, knew then the full cold weight of all that had been taken from them. But hear what they did on those hard nights, for it is the tenderest thing in all the story. Fionnuala, fearing always that the storm would drive them apart and that one of her brothers would be lost alone in the dark water, made with them a promise and a place of meeting. Should the storm ever scatter them, they would each make their way back to a certain rock that rose from the sea, and there they would find one another again. And on the wild nights, when the waves drove them apart, the 4 of them would struggle through the dark and the cold, each alone, each afraid, until one by one they came back to the rock and found one another, and drew close together again. And Fionnuala would gather her 3 brothers to her once more, and shelter the 2 little twins beneath her right wing and her left, and draw Aoife in beneath the feathers of her breast. And so they would weather the long night together, warming one another, waiting for the dawn. And always, when the storm had passed and the gray light came again over the calming sea, they were still 4, still together, having lost not one of their number to the dark. The love between them was stronger than the storm. The promise held, the meeting place held, through 300 winters of the bitter Sea of Moyle. The children of Lir held to one another and were not torn apart, and that holding was its own kind of warmth, a warmth that no cold sea could put out. Feel that warmth now, even here in the hardest water. 4 white swans on a dark and storm-tossed sea, and yet drawing always back to one another, sheltering one another beneath their wings, refusing through 3 long centuries to be parted. Whatever felt cold or scattered in your own day, let it be gathered now, the way Fionnuala gathered her brothers, drawn in close, sheltered, warmed against the dark. The storm does not last. The dawn always comes over the sea at last. And the ones who love you hold you through the night. Let that carry you down, soft and safe, even through the cold of Moyle, toward the morning and toward sleep. When the 300 years upon the Sea of Moyle were ended at last, the swans felt the spell turn within them once more, and they rose up from that bitter water and flew on to the third and final of their long waters, a wild sea by the western shore of Ireland, near a headland where the land runs out into the great ocean, and there began the last age of their enchantment, the final 300 years, the longest patience of all. By now, the Children of Lir had been swans for 600 years. 600 years upon the waters of Ireland, and the world they had known as children was long, long gone. This is the gentlest and the most far-reaching sorrow of the whole story, and I tell it softly because there is a deep and quiet peace folded inside it. For while the swans had drifted and sung upon their lonely waters, the long years had been turning over the land, and everyone they had known had passed away. Their father Lir, who had come so often to the shore, had lived out his long life and died and been laid to rest in the green earth ages ago. The shining folk of Danu, who had gathered to listen at Derravaragh, had faded from the high green world and slipped away into the hidden places, into the soft hills and the quiet hollows, leaving the land to a new people and a new age. When at last the swans flew over Ireland to their final sea, they passed over a country grown strange to them, and they looked for the White House upon the green hill, and they found that it was gone. Only a low green mound where their happy home had been, with the grass growing over it, and the wind moving in the long grass, and no one there at all. That is a great sorrow, to outlive your whole world. But the Children of Lir had learned, across 600 years, the deep art of patience, and they did not break beneath it. They had each other still, the four of them, the one thing the long years had not taken, and they had the memory of their home held warm between them, and they had the promise of the bell, the gentle bell of a new age which had not yet rung, but which must, they knew, be drawing nearer now with every turning year. So upon that wild western sea they settled to wait out the last of their long ages. And they waited with a patience so deep and so quiet that it had become a kind of peace. For there is a thing that can happen to a sorrow. If it is carried long enough and gently enough with love beside it, it can soften, it can grow quiet, it can settle, the way silt settles to the floor of a still pool, until the water above runs clear again. The Children of Lir had grieved upon Derravaragh, and they had suffered upon the Sea of Moyle, but here upon the last sea, in the long quiet of their final age, their sorrow had grown old and soft and gentle, worn smooth as a stone in a stream. They were not unhappy, exactly, in those last years. They were patient. They drifted on the wide western water beneath the great turning sky, the four of them together, and they sang their healing songs to the wind and the waves and the few who passed, and they waited, with the deep calm of those who have learned that all waiting comes to an end. Picture them there, in the last age, upon the western sea, four white swans on the wide, gray water at evening, the sun going down red into the great ocean beyond them, the first stars coming out over the dark hills behind. They are very old now, in the way of the spirit, though they are still white and graceful upon the water. They have seen the whole world they knew pass away, and yet they are at peace, drifting close together, keeping their long, patient watch, waiting for a bell. There is no fear left in them, and very little sorrow, only a deep, worn, gentle quiet, and the steady love between them, and the faith that the bell will ring. And in those last long years, they spoke often, the four of them, in the quiet of the evenings, of all that they remembered, of the White House on the green hill and the fire, and the long gold days of their childhood by the first lake, of their father's kind face, and the psalms they had sung as children, and the small bright things that children remember, the feel of warm grass, the taste of cool water, the safety of being small and loved and held. They had carried those memories across 900 years, the four of them together, keeping them warm between them the way they kept one another warm beneath their wings. And the memories had not faded, but had only grown softer and dearer with the carrying. And so, even upon the loneliest sea, at the far end of the longest waiting, they were never truly far from home, for they carried their home inside them, and they had only to speak of it to be back for a little while in the firelight, all together, safe. Let that quiet be your quiet now. The long patience of the swans, the sorrow grown soft and smooth, the dear warm memories carried gently through the dark, the peace that comes at the far end of a great waiting. Rest there on the western sea, beneath the coming stars. And then, one still morning at the very end of the world they had known, after 900 years upon the waters, the children of Lir heard a sound they had never heard before. It came faintly at first across the quiet water, from somewhere on the green land behind them. A small, clear, gentle sound, ringing out over the hills and the hollows. Sweet and steady and entirely new, it was the sound of a bell, a holy bell, ringing in the morning of a new age. A soft bell calling out across an Ireland grown gentle and changed. The very bell that Aoife had spoken of so long ago by the shore of Derravaragh, the bell that was to set them free. The swans grew still upon the water and lifted their heads and listened, and the small clear ringing came again across the morning, and they knew, all four of them at once, that the long waiting was over. Oh, the sweetness of that sound to them. After 900 years, they drew close together upon the calm water, the four of them, Fionnuala and Aoife and the two little twins, Fiachra and Con, as close as they had ever been, and they listened to the gentle bell ringing in their freedom, and a great peace came down over them, deeper than any they had known in all their long ages upon the waters. The spell was ending. They could feel it loosening within them, softly, like a knot at last untied, like a long-held breath at last let go. And the old stories tell that as the bell rang and the enchantment fell away, the children of Lir came at last to their rest. The years they had truly lived, all 900 of them, came gently home to them, and they were children no longer, but they were free, and they were together, and they were unafraid. Their long task upon the waters was done. They had given peace to all who heard them for 900 years. They had held to one another through every storm and every cold and every turning of the age, and never once let go. And now, with the gentle bell ringing them home, they laid down the long burden of their enchantment, the four of them side by side, and they passed softly out of the world of the waters and into a deep and final peace, together, at rest at last. And there is no sorrow in that ending, not really, when you let it slow all the way down. For they were free. The waiting was over. The cold seas were behind them. The long patience was rewarded. And the bell had rung as they had always been promised it would. And they went into their rest together, none of them left alone, none of them lost. All four held close to the very end. After 900 years upon the lonely waters, the children of Lir were free, and they were at peace, and they were together, and they could finally rest. Let that be the feeling you carry down into sleep now. The long waiting is over. The bell has rung. There is nothing left to endure, and nothing left to fear. Whatever you have been holding through your own long day, you may set it down now, the way the swans set down their 900 years, and let yourself come at last to rest. You are held as the four of them held one another. You are safe, as they were safe at the end. The cold seas are behind you. The gentle bell is ringing somewhere soft and far away. And there is nothing more for you to do tonight but to let your breath grow slow, and your body grow heavy and still, and your weary heart grow quiet, and to drift like four white swans upon a calm and shining water, down and down into the deep peace of sleep. The bell has rung. The long waiting is over. You are free to rest now. Sleep well. Good night.